One thing I do want to ask though is, if you're starting out, or say your company's been using a CRM for a period of time, and you need to kind of address adoption of the solution, and you want to put together an A team of user adoption. What sort of, not necessarily personalities, but roles would be helpful for an organization to, whose perspective would they want to keep on that committee at user adoption A team?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think it's important to have a group of perspectives. One thing is when you approach your implementation, there's a tendency to want to say, hey, we just need something. We don't need anything complicated. We just want to roll out something really simple and get going on it. Doesn't have to be perfect. We just need something. And that is a healthy mentality. It's a healthy mentality to say, hey, we don't need everything to be perfect. We just need it to be simple. The one thing that I think some people miss is that what is simple from a user experience perspective can be complex from an implementation perspective. What do I mean by that? Well, if I said I'm going to give my son, who is 3 years old, some really simple directions on how to ride a bike, or my 16-year-old daughter, I'm going to say, give her really simple instructions on how to drive a car. When she actually gets behind the wheel to drive, she may find that she's running into a lot of issues, and she may end up in an accident. And so we can't confuse simple user experience with simple instructions. So when we're approaching a CRM project, just if we want to create a simple user adoption, and we want to create healthy user adoption and a simple user experience, we have to put the preparation in ahead of time to make sure that we understand what our processes need to look like. We need to make sure that the system is adapted to our processes, and then we need to roll it out. The system doesn't have to do everything for us, and there may be some manual things that we do, but we have to plan out key wins. So in terms of that committee for rolling out the solution, you want the people in the room. Some people in the organization will always tend to think everything is easy and everything is simple. You know what? It's great. Let's have those people in the room, because they can give us direction on what that user experience needs to look like after the fact. How do we keep it a simple and clean user experience? And they'll give us insight on that. But then you're going to have other people that really want to do analysis, and they really want to be well prepared. Well, those people are great for taking that simple user experience and interpreting that in terms of, hey, here's the framework we need to create ahead of time, or here's the automated workflows we need to create ahead of time to ensure that that easy user experience happens after the fact. So I think it's important to have a blend of both. Once you get rolling with it, you want to make sure that on that committee, you've got somebody that is already respected by the group of users that you're going to be depending on. You can't get everybody involved, but if you can find, it doesn't have to even be the manager. Often it's better if it's not the manager, but if you get somebody who the user that all of the salespeople look up to, who's a good performer, or even who has proven themselves to be somewhat technically adept, and other people lean on them for assistance, get that person involved, because they're more likely to be able to rally the troops and get adoption after the fact. But it's really important to make sure that the users have representation, because if you're just focused on delivering those the right dashboards to management, and you don't give the right user experience to the people who have to either enter the data or use the system to make it valuable, then you miss the boat, and user adoption inevitably suffers.
All right. Well, there doesn't seem to be any more questions coming in. Are there any final thoughts that you'd want to end off on?
Yeah, I guess, a few things that we just recapped, I think, or that I'll recap. So begin with the end in mind, establish what success looks like. What does a successful sales team or customer service department or marketing team look like? What are they going to accomplish? And begin with that end in mind, and think about the tools as something that supports the business initiative, not that you're going to force your business processes to wrap around what the tool says you should do. So begin with the end in mind. The next thing is plan those key wins for your individual users. Think about it as from a what's in it for me perspective. It's usually evident what's in it for management when we get started, but often the users suffer and they come second. So ask them and make sure that you understand what's in it for them, and connect a clear picture to how you're going to achieve that win for them, because that's going to get them excited. The next thing I would say is encourage feedback. So there's a tendency that we get, into a CRM initiative and you start to think, I just want this to go live. I don't want any more changes. I don't want any more ideas. And so as the users give suggestions, you want to establish a culture early on that suggestions are good. Change is good. It's not something that we shy away from. This is why we're getting a system that's flexible. This is why we chose the right system, because the right system can work the way we want to work. So when users want to give you suggestions, make sure that they feel heard, get those suggestions written down. We can manage that within a project and make sure that we stay in scope. And some ideas will not go in this iteration, but maybe there's a future iteration. But encourage that feedback, because if you shut that down, you're also shutting down user adoption after the fact. They won't want to use a system that they didn't feel they got heard on when it was implemented. Make sure you do, I mentioned select a tool. There's really no excuse at this point to go with a tool that does not give you the flexibility you need to be able to adapt. Some tools are really built to work just the way they work. Beware of those kinds of tools, and pick tools that you can build your own workflows in. Make sure that they have an open API that can connect to other external applications so that there's integration. Make sure that there's, through the user interface, that you can add custom fields and custom relationships. Don't be scared of that. As long as it can be configured and a lot of this flexibility can be achieved through the user interface without a developer, don't be afraid of that kind of configuration and flexibility. And then again, remember that to achieve simple, we need to extract the complexity out by predicting it. We need to address complexities ahead of time and get our processes sorted out ahead of time, so that the CRM itself becomes simple and intuitive for the end users. And then and so no matter how narrow you make the scope of the CRM to start off, to keep it simple, make sure that you think through how it should work and what you're looking to achieve, because the technology is just there to support a business objective. It doesn't become the objective. And then, yeah, the last thing is just embrace the whole thing as a process. It's an ongoing improvement process. It should be as dynamic as your business processes are, if you're doing it right. So, those are kind of my bullets and my biggest suggestions on how to approach it.